Hey everybody, Fred Minnick here with some interesting sales data. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know I'm a nerd for the data. I love finding out who's selling where and who's doing what and what demographics are interested in particular spirits. Now, I am absolutely fascinated with Black Friday. Ever since I was a kid and watched on television as parents mauled one another over friggin' Cabbage Patch dolls, remember that? I mean, they were like baseball bats taken to people over a friggin' doll that looked like Chucky. I was really perplexed as to why anybody would do that. And then you continue to see it in the modern day. And so I'm just fascinated with Black Friday sales. So I hit up Drizzly for the numbers of what their top 10 selling American whiskeys were on Black Friday. And I'm telling you, number one is going to shock the living shit out of you if you are a whiskey consumer. Well, maybe not. It may not shock you, but it shocked me. At number 10, Angel's Envy, which is a port barrel finish, a very respectable place for that burgeoning brand, which they're not really burgeoning anymore. They're really doing quite well. At number 9, Evan Williams, the Black Label. You know, that's the number 2 selling bourbon in the world. So it is good to see that, you know, they're hitting that mark there. But to me, that's a bit of a loss because on the overall sales numbers, they're much, much higher than number 9. Number 8, Buffalo Trace. Uh-oh. Watch out. Buffalo Trace at number 8. At number 7, now this is a bourbon that I do not order. I do not recommend it. It's Basil Hayden's Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. The reason why, it's watered down too much. It's 80 proof. I don't care for it. But you know what? It's got a following and good for them. And that is coming in at number 7. At number 6, Blanton's. Blanton's is at number 6. Number 5, Jim Beam Bourbon Whiskey. Now, here's the thing. This is 80 proof, and I do recommend Jim Beam far over I do Basil Hayden's. I actually like the flavor of Jim Beam. Couple stories for you. I've done some blind tastings and thrown a bunch of stuff in there. Jim Beam White Label always fares really, really well. I think Jim Beam is a really solid product and holds up at 80 proof. Number 4, a respectable position here for Woodford Reserve. I can definitely see Woodford Reserve climbing the charts, and but that's a good position for them. That's about where I expect them to be. Number 3, Maker's Mark. Maker's Mark at number 3. That's about right. They are the number 3 overall selling bourbon. So yeah, that's about right. At number 2. Bullet Bourbon. Now, if you remember from the data from last time, Bullet was number 1 overall in the last quarter of sales for Drizzly. So that tells you that Bullet puts a lot of marketing effort into Drizzly, and it pays, and it shows. But here we are. They did not win the crown of best-selling American whiskey on Black Friday. That crown belongs to none other than Jack Daniel's Old Number 7. Jack was the best-selling American whiskey, or bourbon, on Black Friday. Now, why is that a surprise to me? Well, it's a surprise to me because Jack Daniel's, to me, obviously, it's the best-selling whiskey that's out there. Obviously, it's always in front of everybody and being discussed all the time. But to me, Black Friday is about buying gifts, and I don't see Jack Daniel's as a gift. But maybe I got it all wrong. Maybe it's the gift for everybody. And to be honest with you, who doesn't have a bottle of Jack Daniel's in their house? I mean, the majority of whiskey drinkers have a bottle of Jack Daniel's. The majority of people who just want to have a whiskey in the house to do whatever has Jack Daniel's. So, you know, I guess when you put it in that perspective, it does make a lot of sense. Now, let's take a look at who was snubbed. We don't see any Four Roses in here. Four Roses not being on this list is very concerning for me because they should be in the top 10. Wild Turkey 101 not being on this list. Wow. Wow. That is a shocker. When you look at the fact that Jack Daniels is on here, Maker's Mark is on here, Basil Hayden's on here, and Angel's Envy is outselling Wild Turkey 101 on Drizzly. That's if I'm an executive at Campari, I'm very concerned about this data. Let's take some other snubs here that I would say that it's not. These aren't snubs because like the Drizzly just didn't pull this out of the thin air. This is based on their data in their respective states. I'd say I'd like to see Old Forester on here. Old Forester is a brand that I know it's not as nationally known, but in the bourbon community, it's so important, so special. I think it'd be really cool if they had a presence here. I'm also a little surprised that while we see Bulleit Bourbon, I've always felt like Bulleit Rye was a little bit more, a little bit more approachable to a lot of people. In fact, we don't see any ryes on here at all. So the fact that there are no ryes on this tells you that it's still the market is still bourbon and Tennessee whiskeys. And while rye may be beloved by a lot of us in the premium categories, they're just not connecting there maybe on like the everyday consumer. Who else is a snob here? Snub. Who else is a snub? We only have one Heaven Hill product here. That's Evan Williams Bourbon. I think, I feel like if we're gonna have Woodford Reserve in here, if Blanton's is gonna be in here, I almost feel like Elijah Craig or a Larceny should be in here as well. So while Heaven Hill has one product in here, I would be looking at this data if I was a Heaven Hill executive and saying like, why do we only have one product in here? And why is Evan Williams only at number 9? So that's a couple things that I would be looking at. And then when I kind of get around to the other distilleries, Jim Beam did really well, but I don't understand why Knob Creek does not resonate with the everyday consumer. I just don't get it. Knob Creek is just a great bourbon for the money, and yet it does not resonate with some of these kind of like everyday shoppers. But yeah, those are kind of the people I feel like should be on this list that are not. And it's still mind-boggling to me that Blanton's is on the top 10 of any best-selling list. Now, this was based on volume. This wasn't based on money. This was based on volume. So I just don't get it. Maybe people are selling Blanton's more through Drizzly than they are in the retail store. I just don't know. But all I know is that when I go into a store, when I talk to a retailer, they're like, Blanton's, we can't get it. So someone's getting it and someone's buying it because it's continuously on Drizzly's top 10 list that I get. But that's going to do it here for this interesting quarter about cool, interesting facts coming in through the sales chain. But thank you for joining me. If you want to learn more cool facts about American whiskey and want to see some cool celebrity interviews, I just drank some whiskey with Ludacris and Yellow Wolf. I'm always having a good time. Click that subscribe button if you want to get deeper into the conversation. Like the members who saw this live when I first recorded it, click the join membership button. And until next time, cheers. And remember, vodka sucks unless... No, it just sucks. Cheers.